Sophia Red for our next interview, but it's lovely to hear from you. And
Lovely, thank you very much.
As an affiliated union to the National Union of Students, NUS UK, USU sends 6 delegates to the NUS National Conference. Delegates represent students' views on a national level, decide on priorities and policies, and elect the NUS leaders for the following year.
Hi, I'm Finn, and I'm here with Hannah Nimmo to talk about who's running for NUS Delegate. So
Yes.
my first question is, I don't know much about the NUS.
Yeah.
It's not a thing that's talked about very much, so why do you think it's important?
Yeah, to be honest, I think you're not alone in that. I think a lot of people sort of might have a vague awareness that NUS exists, but don't really know what it is and what it does to benefit students. So National Union of Students is a organisation that USU has an affiliation to, and they do a lot of different things. So they do a lot of training for sabbatical officers, they can make sort of national policies that are implemented across every university in the UK that's affiliated to them, and they also sort of have a consortium that reduces the price of some of the stuff in our UC venues as well, which people don't know about. So we can charge the prices that we do because of NUS essentially.
So your manifesto says you want to amplify student voices on
Yeah.
a national scale. How specifically would you try and do that?
Yeah, well, obviously I'm a current sabbatical officer, so I'm a current community and wellbeing officer in USU, and I think part of being a SAB is that you amplify the voice of students on a local level. So I think sort of being an NUS delegate would mean I can do that same thing on a national level. I think I've got a good idea of sort of the issues that students are facing, both locally and nationally, and I have a lot of partnerships with other student unions across the country, and we're all facing the same issues with our students. So I think being an NUS delegate and taking those issues to sort of a national scale, I think is really important.
So you said you want to work with like other student unions
Yeah.
to push like real transformational change in the NUS. What do you think the problems in the NUS are that need to be solved?
The problems in the NUS or
Yes.
just problems with students nationally?
Problems with students, both really, because
Yeah.
you've said in your manifesto change in the NUS.
Yeah, well, I think obviously there was a pretty damning report that's come out recently about the NUS with anti-Semitism and whatnot. And I think that it really highlighted that there needs to be like a core structural change to NUS. So I think the organisation doesn't function as it should at the moment. And I think the way that that change needs to be made is by listening to student unions and most importantly to students directly. Because if they're supposed to be the national union of students and represent students nationally, if you're not listening to your students, then what's the point?
So you've been a NUS delegate before.
Yes, I was a delegate last year, yeah.
What do you think you could bring from that and maybe do differently or do the same?
Yeah, I think there's a real benefit in having experience of being a delegate. I think sometimes, especially because a lot of students don't know what NUS is or what it can do to benefit them, I guess, having someone at the conference and sort of voting on policies who has not only the understanding of what students want from being a sabbatical officer, but also the experience of how NUS works and what policies would actually work nationally for students, I think is really important.
So why do you think you'd be the right or like a really good NUS delegate?
Yeah, I think I'd be a good candidate because I know what students want. I'm more than happy to consult students on it. I've been a delegate before and I think it'd be a really good opportunity to really make a national change for students.
If you could try and kind of sum up your campaign in like one sentence.
Yeah. So I think just mainly the sort of the way to make change locally is to also make change nationally. So I think working on a local and national level sort of in tandem would really help to benefit campaigning.
So so you've said you want to work with other students' unions and you have
Yeah.
those kind of connections with that, and you've said you've like been it before.
Yeah.
How would you like go about like actively making the change? So a lot of the campaigns
Yeah.
the students' union have run recently have been about like making noise,
Yeah.
doing a lot of like publicising.
Yeah.
Is that a similar thing you try and do? And how hard would that be?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of student unions are sort of facing relatively similar issues locally, and I think the reason why some of us aren't necessarily making headway or making changes locally is because we're not making enough noise nationally. So I think if we can all come together at NUS conference and say, like, look, this is what students are facing up and down the country, we actually have the chance to make a real change and do something about it. And if we vote policies through on it, universities have to listen to it. So I think it's just really important to come together in that sense.
What do you think you achieved kind of last year for the NUS, or did you not? Was it hard because of the structural issues?
Yeah, there were structural issues within the NUS that made it difficult, and I don't know how they would be solved this year. But I'm confident that there might be some movement in terms of we might actually be able to make some proper changes this year.
So obviously, there's only like there's 6 delegates being sent, and there's 2 candidates.
Yeah.
So you're probably gonna
Yeah.
do quite well. But how would you kind of sum up your campaign in one word?
Ambitious.
Brilliant. So we're going to the green room now.
Amazing.
And welcome back to the green room.